Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. Not music, really, but something else came up today I was going to talk about. I figured I'd do it. Maybe at a later time I'll do it more in depth. But so the long-awaited TV series or live-action adaptation of Brian K. Vaughan's epic story of post-apocalyptic planet Earth, pretty much, Y the Last Man, is finally going to be coming to as a TV series to the FX network and HULU, streaming on HULU. The premiere date is September 13th. The first trailer finally came out. There was a teaser like a few weeks ago, and I've been following. It's Eliza Clark, I believe, is the one who's the showrunner. She's been posting photos for months on Instagram. It was going back to last year. I've been following her on Instagram. So, Y the Last Man and Brian K. Vaughan. Brian K. Vaughan. The short story for me is I didn't really know the name, but I was dating someone, and it just the relationship unfortunately didn't really last all that long. But she did tell me about this. I'd never heard of it. Y the Last Man or Brian K. Vaughan. I don't even know if she mentioned Brian K. Vaughan to me, but that was around 2009, the spring of 2009, I think, specifically. She talked to us, like, she said, I was like, what is Y the Last Man? I've never heard of this. She's like, oh, it's only like the greatest story ever, greatest novel, graphic novel ever, etc. So Y the Last Man, so I have the whole thing, and you know, I since they're now doing a TV series, I thought it would be worth, I should probably try to go back and read it. It's a graphic novel series, so is it comic books? No, it's not Marvel Universe, although I'll talk a little bit more about Brian K. Vaughan in a few minutes, about his background. But I did collect them. I found them downstairs in a box, and of course they're bent a little bit, but I think they probably will, the condition of every issue of Y the Last Man I have isn't damaged so much that that I would worry about it. I mean, I can probably bend them back. They're not like bent. They're just kind of temporarily bent, I guess you could say. But here's the whole thing. I collected them individually. I didn't buy the whole thing at once. I know some people have done that before. It's expensive. And I know they came out as different issues because it's Vertigo Comics. And I think that he started doing them along with this gentleman named Pia Guerra. Gentleman? I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, actually. It might be a woman, actually. And Jose Marzan Jr. Whatever the Eisner Award. But there's 10 issues, or 10 stories, actually, 10 chapters or parts of the stories. So the first one, I can just show it. This is Unmanned. Again, I'm looking for the year. 2002. So that's how far it goes back. So came out sort of in the age of Harry Potter. And then I don't know if this was 2002 again. This is called Afterman, or Cycles rather. Cycles, One Small Step. And again, 2000. I think it took him, I think he probably wrote this whole thing, and they did the artwork with Pia over the period of like 3 or 4 years. This is Safe Word, Ring of Truth. I should be showing the backs, but Girl on Girl. See, and I'll get into the premise just in a minute, but that kind of tells you to an extent. Paper Dolls, which also is a connection with something else with him. I'm trying to look at the years on some of these, but Paper Dolls, that was number 7. Number 8 is Kimono Dragons, Motherland, and The Last Man. Whys and Mysteries. Yeah, Whys and Wherefores, not Mysteries. Whys and Wherefores. So the premise of this whole story is that a plague hits through the air, basically, at one point. And I don't know when it's set. I want to say it's set sometime in the near future. Yeah, maybe in the 2040s or 20... I can't remember what year it's set in. I mean, that's why I need to go back and read this. It was over 10 years ago I read these. I got them from the library. I checked them out from the library before buying these. But yeah, some sort of, is it environmental toxic thing that just affects males, and males basically get stricken and die within hours, if not minutes, They're like bleeding from the nose and stuff like that, and it's just one day, you know, and it happens. You see it, of course, in the U.S., the United States, largely in Washington D.C. Except there's one man who survives. I forget the exact reasons. He's an escape artist named Yorick Brown, and his monkey. I forget the name of it. See, it says on the back here, but approximately 2.9 billion men died. So it's like 48% of the population on the planet. It was set in the summer of 2002, so it was present. Some of the thing was in the future, but anyway. So that basically Yorick and his monkey, and then he finds some other family members, but it's all everyone else on the planet that he encounters, that you would see is being encountered, is female. So, and it becomes a post-apocalyptic world where resources are different because of this plague and all this stuff. And they go throughout the U.S. and, you know, because he meets this one agent works for his mother, I think it was. I can't remember, who's an agent, like a militaristic agent. It's a woman named 355. Anyway, Agent 355. But they're traveling throughout the U.S. and they eventually end up in Australia, other parts of Asia and stuff like that. But you do find out more about what happens at the end, which, again, I love this book. I can't even remember all the details of the premise. That's pretty sad. But it was, in fairness, it was over 10 years ago. So there was a short film made that was taken from early parts of the books or the graphic novels, one of the first couple, One Small Step or Cycles. But that was what it was. It was like a fan-made short film. It was well done. It was done in like 2011. It's on YouTube. It may have even been before then. It's on YouTube. It's worth checking out. It's like 13 minutes or something. And then there was just like all this stuff with Hollywood, like at Comic-Con every year, I guess, with Brian K. Vaughan trying to shop it around, trying to get the right person to adapt it. And it always like a little momentum, little baby steps, and then it would fall down. Who they were going to cast is Yorick. I wanted them to get James Roday. And there was all this rumors about Shia LaBeouf, which would have been absolutely disastrous. Thank God he did not get cast as Yorick. But so then it was finally happening. I think the biggest catalyst for me, when it finally did come to fruition, was a few years ago, and I did talk about it briefly a few years ago in a video, and I talked about it on a blog, I think, or on a podcast I did. Brian Caveon was a co-creator of the Runaways, Marvel's Runaways, he wrote for this. At one point, Joss Whedon wrote for this. Also, Joss Whedon of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel and Dollhouse and stuff like that. And some of them, he's done like some of the Marvel movies, I think. Anyway, it was a series that was on Hulu, I think. It was on Amazon or Hulu. I'm pretty sure it was Hulu for 3 years, and it was done pretty well. Now, a lot of the loyalists of the Runaways series, they had mixed feelings about it, but I thought it was done pretty well. It had a good cast. It only lasted 3 seasons, unfortunately, but it was still pretty good. I think given the fact they were able to make The Runaways, which is a Brian K. Vaughan creation or co-creation, kind of gave the momentum. I always had the feeling that if he could get The Runaways made, and when he did make The Runaways, then Why the Last Man would finally get made. People wanted Why the Last Man for the longest time. I wasn't the only one. I was late to the game since I didn't get into it until 2009. This thing came out in 2002 or 2003, 2004, 2005. Brian K. Vaughan, though, the other thing about it, he's a pretty prolific graphic novelist or writer and screenwriter in Hollywood, too. I totally noticed that, and I read about him right after I started reading Why the Last Man, because he was a writer on Lost. Now, he was a writer on, like, the third, fourth, fifth. He wasn't on the first season, maybe the second season. But he was a writer on Lost, and you can sort of see some of the sarcastic, witty, pop culture referencing dialogue in... They reference music and movies and stuff like that in Why the Last Man. You do see it, you do notice it if you've watched Lost, and sort of some of the similar elements of the stuff that's hard to believe it's true. They're on an island, just like there would be a apocalypse or post-apocalypse. So that's one thing that appealed to me. He's sarcastic. He wasn't totally dark, and he wasn't an action superhero kind of stereotypical graphic novels, because it is graphic novels. So it's starting September 13th on FX and Hulu, as I mentioned. Stars Diane Lane as the Senator Jennifer Brown. That's Yorick's, I think it's his older sister. I think it is, yeah. Yorick is played by someone named Ben Schnetzer. I've never heard of. A lot of these casts I've never heard of, but there's a few people. Olivia Thrilby's in it. She plays Hero. So Hero is one of the other agents, I think. Agent 355 though is Ashley Romans. That's someone I recognize her face, but I don't know what she's done. But some of the other casting, it's weird. I'm looking at this casting, and I don't know if they've recast some of this. So, assuming IMDb is accurate, I thought Imogen Poots was going to be on this at one point, but she may not be listed anymore. And a Missy Pyle, who's been on a number of sitcoms and dramas over the last 15, 20 years. I think she was on My Name is Earl. That's what I think of her most for. But she's been a guest star on tons of stuff. She always has like a southern accent at points. But I believe Amber Tamblin's also in it. So you have Diane Lane, Amber Tamblyn. I don't know, like if Wikipedia is going to give me. I'll just figure. My connection's gone, of course. Anyway, so I can't actually look this up right now. It says I'm connected, but I'm not getting a connection. Let me just try one more time. Yeah, okay, there we go. So what are they saying? What are they saying? Are they giving the cast? Yeah, Amber Tamblin's Kimberly Cunningham. So again, Paul Gross is in it. Interesting. I haven't seen him in a long time. Last time I saw him was in Eastwick. Of course, he was in Due South. And anyway, so he's going to play the president. Yeah, so I'm not sure if the casting on IMDb is fully accurate, but Diane Lane, Ben Schnetzer, I don't know what Ben Schnetzer's done. I mean, the casting for Yorick is going to be totally key because he's the best part of it. I don't know what he's really known for. He's an American. Let's see, is he American? Yeah, he's from New York City, which that kind of helps, I guess. He's a musician, which also helps because I think Yorick actually is. He's an escape artist, but he's done music. The Book Thief, Pride, Happy Town. So just a few little things. Maybe in some way it's good that it's an unknown because you're not going to be thinking of previous characters this person's done. But Happy Town was a show in 2010. So anyway, so the only thing I would just say is that Brian K. Vaughan, along with Daniel Klaus and a couple others, are sort of my go-tos for graphic novelists or writers. I do have some of his other stuff, and I thought that I had more of it, but I mentioned one of the issues of Why the Last Man was called Paper Girls. Brian K. Vaughan's got a series called Paper Girls, which I think has come later. Unfortunately, I bought 2 copies of the first issue. I didn't realize I had it, but it's set in 1988 in America. In the early hours after Halloween, 1988, 4 12-year-old girls, newspaper delivery girls uncover the most important story of all time. I honestly have not gotten around to read. I read through a little bit of it, but I've got like the first one and the 5th one. I mean, I see him used, and I sometimes pick them up at half price. But he also has done the one that I'd like to see. And I thought I had more of this, but maybe not. I've read most of it. Is a series called Ex Machina, which I think he wrote not long after, or maybe around the same time as Why the Last Man. Multiple 2005 Eisner Awards. So with me, it was right after. But the premise of Ex Machina is about, well, I could read it. A strange accident gives civil engineer Mitchell Hundred amazing powers. He becomes America's first living, breathing superhero. So it is a superhero type thing. It's set in New York City. Like, it goes through time. Before 9/11, after 9/11. It's really interesting. Although I must confess, I probably have not read it all because I got a bunch of issues from the library, but I have not read it in succession, in chronological order, so still a work in progress. But I really like this, and if anything ever gets made into an adaptation after Why the Last Man, this would be at the top of my list. And a lot of people love this. A lot of people love this more than Why the Last Man, actually, among Brian K. Vaughan's works. So I've got that one, I've got the 5th one, but he also has some other stuff. He has a standalone story called Pride, which is like Pride of Baghdad, about these lions in the city of Baghdad. It's very inspired by like the Iraqi War, I think, and go figure where that's set. That one I remember getting from the library, but he also has a series called Saga, which, if I'm not mistaken, that's the one he's been working on the most now. And I know this is very sci-fi-ish, but it's not Marvel. It's set in like space or different parts of the universe. A lot of like hybrid sort of, humans or life forms are sort of, they're hybrids. They're like different types of, interspecies breeding, that kind of stuff. I don't know. I've read some of it. I've liked it, although it's a little over the top at points. I know there's a lot to do with technology and robots in Saga. And like the issue I bought here, I don't think I read. I checked out a couple from the library at one point, like the first couple. But it's about a baby and a couple, and the different factions around like an intergalactic soap opera or conflict. So I really love Brian K. Vaughan, and Why the Last Man to me is his crowning achievement. I mean, Ex Machina, from the amount I have taken in, is great, but it is finally an accomplishment. Finally anticipate and get to see this thing on screen. The Runaways I really liked, and I haven't read that much of The Runaways. I know the premise, and it's set in the MCU, but I thought The Runaways was done well. But it was kind of teen angst to an extent, but the main characters are kids. This hopefully won't be quite that to the same degree, and this is not set in the MCU. But I guess it depends on if they have enough sort of comic relief with the sort of sci-fi drama twists and turns, and how much it differs from this. I guess I'm tempted to go back and read this sucker if I have time sometime in the next couple months, maybe. Just to kind of remember how much I loved it and why I loved it so much, and then I'll be by comparison. I probably naturally have some criticism of the TV series just because I'm sure people are going to probably just destroy it. Some people are the hardcore, the people that did the same thing with The Runaways, but I'm sure that a lot of people like me that are just really excited for it and really just happy to have anything after over a decade, like 15 years, waiting for this thing to get adapted to on the screen. I'm really excited. Just a question: if you are a fan of Brian K. Vaughan or graphic novels, Why the Last Man, what's your take? Did you watch the trailer? You definitely going to be watching. I mean, I wonder, what do you think of the casting? Again, I thought Imogen Poots was cast at one point, but she must have had to jump ship on this. But there's a lot of unknowns. Diana Bang as Allison Mann. Again, Olivia Thrilby, I know because I've seen her in a few movies, independent films, namely. I know she on the mid 2000s, late 2000s. She had a couple of movies that were buzzed about. I think she was in Juno, if I'm not mistaken, with Ellen Page, or now Elliot Page. Yeah, she was. That was sort of a breakthrough for her. But her career has kind of gone more underground because a lot of the stuff she's done. Yeah, in the last decade has sort of, because that was 2007 with Juno, but it's good to see her on this. Maren Ireland as Nora Brady, again Amber Tamblyn, Paul Gross, Elliot Fletcher as Sam Jordan, and Ashley Romans as Agent 55. And just quick, Ashley Romans doesn't even have a a Wikipedia page. That's all I need to know. But I mean, I'm looking forward to it. A lot of people are looking forward to it, and we'll see. Maybe I will do at the point that if I get the chance to go back and read this, or even read some of this, I'll kind of go more in depth about the story of Yorick Brown and Agent 355, and it's all women pretty much on the planet. It's like Battle of the Amazons in some sense, but. It was a really moving story. I was kind of dealing with some stuff at that time, so it was like a perfect thing. It happened to me twice. When I discovered Harry Potter, I was dealing with some stuff, just sort of down about life and stuff, and it was around the same time, right around the recession in 2009, and this kind of found me at the right time, and now we get to see it on TV, and hopefully it will live up to it to an extent. Hopefully it lasts at least 3 seasons, because that's the thing is, you got 10 novels here. How are they going to get through the whole thing in how many seasons? I mean, mathematically, you could say maybe they get through the first 3 in the first season, so maybe it's 3 seasons or 4 seasons. Maybe I could see 4 seasons. They could get 4 seasons. They could get at least a decent amount. I think some of it's going to be abridged just because you can't include absolutely every scene that's included in this. But if it does well enough, it will last. Now, if it goes on for like 5, 6, 7, 8 seasons, it could turn into something that, it's like, well... And if the quality tails off, I don't know about Brian K. Vaughan's actual involvement in it, because it's Eliza Clark is the one who's actually the showrunner, but I think it's just a consultant like he was with The Runaways. Yeah, he is a producer too, but I don't know if he's doing it in the screenplay. Brad Simpson and Melina Matsukas, Mari Jo Winkler, Iofrida, and Nellie Reed is another producer. So. But they took their time. It's not like they took it out. They made it so quickly. They rushed it out. That's the thing I'm hoping is that the time was well worth the wait. Now, COVID, of course, affected the ability to make this thing. But Yeah, I think Michael Green is the after. Oh, yeah, because they had showrunners leave. Michael Green was the previous showrunner. That's why it took so long. And maybe at that point, I think Imogen Poots had been cast, but then she jumped ship. So, anyway, but thank you for watching. Again, what's your take on Why the Last Man and Brian Caveon? I'd love to see in the comments, and I'll see you next time. One more reminder: I will post at least the trailer and some links in the description box, just so if you don't have to go searching on Google or whatever. But yeah, I'd go with the Wikipedia page, but to know what exactly the details. But the trailer, the teaser, the poster, it's all up. I'll post a link at least to the trailer and at least the IMDb and Wikipedia page for anyone who's interested. Thanks.